Your Xbox One is one step closer to becoming a next-gen console. Is it once again time to jump back into GTA 5? And I'll highlight some of my favorite games coming to Xbox this March. Let's discuss. So last video I talked about some games I thought were cool that were coming to Game Pass in the month of March, but outside of our monthly Game Pass offerings, there's still some really cool games making their way over to Xbox this month. On March 16th, we have Tunic launching on Xbox and Steam. It is a 2D Zelda-inspired adventure game, and for my younger viewers out there, I'm not talking Zelda as in like these most recent Zelda games like Breath of the Wild and all these other 3D ones. I'm talking like the classic 8-bit adventure, the whole it's dangerous to go alone, take this sort of deal. You play as this really cute looking fox guy. He's like this short, tubby fox, and you go around in this very charming looking world, battling different enemies and exploring the world, unlocking the next levels, finding different treasure chests and looting them. The art style, I liked the angular nature of the sort of natural elements, the trees, the grass, the waterfalls even. They had like a triangle geometrical shape that I thought was really cool. Also, the soundtrack, from what little I've heard from the gameplay demo, is really, really solid. I feel like people are really going to be enjoying it, just playing hours of this game, vibing with the soundtrack, the synth, and this kind of jams that they got going on. And again, I think this is curious that it is sort of exclusive to Xbox consoles, not really because you can play it on Steam and on Xbox, but this is not a game that I would usually associate with Xbox, probably because of the Legend of Zelda influence. We associate that so strongly with Nintendo, but again, I think this is really awesome as Microsoft continues to broaden the Xbox net, the Xbox game offerings for its audience. We also got Crusader Kings 3 making its way over to consoles this month, and this is a strategy game very much similar to Sid Meier's Civilization, where there's no actual like armies or like point of view battles or anything like that. It's not real time, it's sort of like Risk, it's all simulated, but there is a heavy diplomatic and strategic element to this. There's also a personal RPG element to it as well, because the character that you're controlling, the commander, they have different specialties and different upbringings that inform the way they govern, inform the way that they command troops and things like that. Again, this is cool because the more good strategy games that you can bring over, and I assume this is good because IGN gave it a 10 out of 10 when it released for PCs last year, then the more I think that's beneficial for us as Xbox players, Xbox fans. So hopefully this is just a trend of more strategy games, not just being exclusive to PC where traditionally they're played, but making their way on over to consoles, because I know a lot of people want that. And the game I'm quite possibly most looking forward to this month that's not Elden Ring is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Now, this is kind of the successor of Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep. It was the best Borderlands DLC for the best Borderlands game, Borderlands 2, but back then for Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, it was more or less the same game mechanics that you would find in Borderlands 2, the same, kind of guns, classes, abilities, but with a D&D wacky fantasy flavor. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, to me, just looks like a more juiced up version of that. You got all the Borderlands madness, of course, that we've come to know and love, the wacky guns, the kind of erratic, irreverent dialogue, but you also have these really cool looking magical abilities as well. I think this is just what the Borderlands series needs. I am a big fan. I've played Borderlands 1, 2, 3, the pre-sequel, but Borderlands pre-sequel and Borderlands 3 kind of hit a wall, it felt like. So I feel like this is a good chance for them to revitalize the franchise and bring something fresh to it. And while Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, that was originally a DLC that came out for Borderlands 2, they released it as a standalone game as well and optimized it for current gen consoles. So if you want to play through that before Tiny Tina's Wonderland release, then this is a perfect opportunity to immerse yourself in all the craziness of the Bunkers and Badass storyline. Well guys, here we are again, almost 10 years after Grand Theft Auto 5 released in September of 2013. Man, I cannot believe it's been that long. We're still talking about it, and that's because on Tuesday, March 15th, we are getting the next-gen versions of the game, the PS5, the Xbox Series X and S version, sorry. As part of this, they're also separating GTA Online from the main campaign version of the game just for consoles. It's very strange. You will not need the base Grand Theft Auto 5 game to play GTA Online. As part of this next-gen version, we're getting the typical next-gen upgrades. There's going to be the holy trinity of game modes, graphics modes. You got a quality mode looking thing where it has a true 4K resolution with ray tracing but a lower frame rate. You have a performance mode, which is not native 4K, but an upscaled 4K, but targets a higher frame rate, 60 FPS, but it doesn't have ray tracing. And then we also have in this game, on both versions of the consoles, Performance RT version, which is the performance mode with a little bit of ray tracing thrown in there. Not as much as the quality mode, but a little bit of ray tracing. Again, they're apparently throwing in some more next-gen stuff, higher crowd density, the water's gonna look pretty nice, the loading times are going to be really short. When covering this, The Verge also says that there's a very unexpected upgrade in terms of the vehicles of this game. Some of the vehicles are going to have a higher top speed because of the processing power of these new-gen consoles. They're able to render in the world a lot more faster than they were on previous versions of the game. Again, the GTA Online is going to be separate from the GTA single-player experience, and they're apparently giving you a little bit of incentive to jump back in. They're going to give you $4 million and start an in-game currency, and there's going to be a new in-game intro tutorial action for new players to introduce them to the world of GTA Online, which can be pretty crazy sometimes. There's apparently also going to be new vehicles and a mode where you can test drive some of the nicer cars for free. There is some really interesting cross-gen, cross-platform stuff going on here. So if you have played the previous versions of the game, say you played on your PS4 and you want to transfer it to this new next-gen fancy version of GTA 5, you can totally do that. You can even transfer your save and your in-game currency to another platform. So if you were PS4 but you got Xbox this generation, you can transfer your data or vice versa, and I think that's very cool. If you used real money to purchase any GTA 5 currency, that will not transfer over to another platform. If you bought it in the PS4 ecosystem, it's got to stay in that PlayStation ecosystem. Same with the Xbox. PlayStation 5 players do have a pretty noticeable, some things that I'm jealous of, I would say. They are able to play GTA Online for free 3 months from the launch date. So starting on March 15th, they will have 3 months of free GTA Online, which I think is pretty cool, pretty sick. They also have some really cool features being added to their DualSense controllers. They'll be able to feel some different weather effects and other cool things. Outside of this free version of GTA Online that's available for PlayStation players, we don't know how much day one online for Xbox guys is going to cost them, or for even PlayStation players outside of that free trial period. And once again, I just think this is crazy that we're still talking about this game. People are still playing this game. It's jam-packed with content. I mean, when GTA Online first launched, it was a mess, but now it is really cool to jump back into. And there's just so much to do in this game, and not even talking about the single-player campaign, which, I mean, GTA 5, gosh dang, it's just one of those games that I just didn't expect to be talking about almost 10 years later. This is the dream for a developer, a game that will endure multiple generations. It's outlived some people. I don't know if this is true anymore, but at one time, GTA 5 was the most lucrative entertainment product ever. It was more lucrative than any movie that's come out, any album, any musical endeavor, anything. It was the most lucrative thing ever. And with this next-gen version coming, it's just probably going to add on to those profits, add on to that fat stack of cash that Rockstar has made from this. But I do think that open world games, it's a little bit crowded right now. People are wrapped up in the open world Elden Ring and Cyberpunk. They just released their next gen version as well, so I know a lot of people are enjoying that. So I'm not sure how eager people are to leave those experiences behind in favor to experience GTA 5 all over again. I'm not sure. I'm probably going to check it out again, honestly, but I still think it's crazy that they're updating it, that they're still making it appealing for people to jump back in second, or for people to experience it for the first time. Microsoft Flight Simulator on March 1st made its way over to Xbox Cloud Gaming, meaning that anyone with an Xbox One, a crappy laptop, any phone with a web browser is able to play Microsoft Flight Simulator. Previously, it was only available on current-gen Xboxes and nicer PCs, and for good reason, too. Microsoft Flight Simulator, at some points, is a perfect one-to-one recreation of entire parts of the globe, really famous landmarks. And even if you have the online functionality on, it generates weather in real time, so if it's raining in Los Angeles, that never happens, but if you're flying over LAX and it's raining, that would happen in the game. It's crazy. That is apparently due to Microsoft upgrading the hardware that it uses for the cloud gaming department. Previously to this, apparently everything was running on Xbox One S hardware, and they upgraded that to Xbox Series X hardware. It's very similar to that service that RTX has going on right now, where it's like, oh, you can stream a game using the power of an RTX, and it'll stream directly to whatever device that you're doing it on. It's the same sort of concept. So when you're on cloud gaming right now on your Xbox One, really it's kind of like you're using the Xbox Series X power in a way to play your game. It's sort of leveled up your Xbox One in this really roundabout, strange way. Upgrading the hardware allowed them to run games at a higher frame rate. It's still locked into 1080p resolution, but we are able to get 60 frames per second on Xbox Cloud Gaming. Hopefully in the future we'll get 4K streaming. That would be really awesome, but I'm satisfied for now. I personally really enjoy how they're expanding cloud gaming like this. I mean, it started out, it was like, okay, this is a cool way to kind of play Halo on my phone when I'm waiting on the bus or like waiting for my doctor's appointment, but it's becoming so much more than that. I feel like we're really starting to see some cool innovations regarding Xbox Cloud Gaming. Sure, the performance is a little iffy every now and then, but I think they'll iron that out, and I think it's going to become something really cool, especially if you're on an Xbox. I mean, we're living through a console shortage. It's really hard to get an Xbox Series X, and this provides a really awesome opportunity for Xbox One players to kind of game at an elevated level that their Xbox One is currently not capable of doing. We also know that Microsoft is working to bring mouse and keyboard support to titles on Xbox Cloud Gaming. Jörg Newman spoke a little bit about this. He's the head of Microsoft Flight Simulator. In a community-led forum, there was a little bit of Q&A going on, and he said this. He said, the next step for us, Microsoft Flight Simulator, is mouse and keyboard. This is platform-level support, so it has nothing to do with us. Obviously, mouse and keyboard works for our sim, so the platform team is working on this. I know I can't give a date because it's the platform team. I don't know their dates, but it's coming. So as we all know, with Microsoft Flight Simulator, it supports mouse and keyboard, right? Generations of gamers have played Microsoft Flight Simulator with the mouse and keyboard. You can do it on your PC, you can do it on your console, but if you play the game on the Xbox Cloud, then you have to use a controller. It's not supported right now to have the mouse and keyboard action. This would be really awesome for my Xbox One brothers out there to, now that Microsoft Flight Simulator is on Xbox Cloud Gaming, you can eventually, hopefully, plug in a mouse and keyboard directly into your Xbox One and play Microsoft Flight Simulator via the cloud. Bringing mouse and keyboard support to cloud gaming opens up a lot of really cool doors, I feel like. Hopefully, this kind of gets the ball rolling on getting Age of Empires into cloud gaming so people can play it on their consoles, people can play it on their crappy PCs. I know that I have a crappy laptop that I cannot function with Age of Empires, so that would be really cool. And mouse and keyboard is not the only thing that they're focusing on, right, for cloud gaming. As we all know, if you're on a mobile device, a lot of these games that you can play on the cloud with Xbox on your phone have touchscreen controls. Young Souls, which is coming up in a little bit on March 10th, is going to have touchscreen control support. And apparently they're also experimenting with gyroscope controls, so you can move your phone to control certain aspects of the game, which I think is really cool. Obviously we have that with the Nintendo Switch right now, but doing that on your phone would be really awesome. Again, the Microsoft Flight Simulator team said that they're also interested in working on gyroscopic controls for a flight simulator. So you can control your plane using like the motion of your phone and have touchscreen controls on Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think that's really awesome. They're saying that they don't really know about a certain timeline, a certain rollout date, but they're hopeful for the first half of 2022. All of this stuff with cloud gaming, it sounds really, really great. I mean, I feel like scratching the surface of what cloud gaming could be. Microsoft back in June announced that they were going to have a little like Xbox cloud gaming stick that you can plug into your TV and play Xbox games. They're going to have a TV app eventually. I don't know when that's going to be, but I feel like, you know, it's sooner rather than later. And just the concept of playing next-gen games, these next-gen titles on not next-gen hardware, a TV, a crappy laptop, your Xbox One, that's awesome for us consumers. But of course, there's still work to be done, right? The performance of Xbox cloud gaming, at least for me, is very up and down. Sometimes it works awesome, sometimes not so much. And of course, we all want that 4K streaming ability. Hopefully they'll be able to bring that for the future, but I'm optimistic. I'm excited. Anyway, guys, that's all the news I have for today. If you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Ray. I would very much appreciate it if you went on over to Twitter and followed me at StayXboxReady. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.